Someone said something to me once that I think about quite often. Casual conversation, must have been maybe a social event or something, not too sure, but she was not trying to be profound. She was just talking, and she said, I have been so many versions of myself, so many different people, to so many different people. I'm to get this right. And I generally do not know which one I am anymore. And I just looked at her because that sentence was so honest, so clear, and so devastating all at the same time. And what got me was not that she said it was how casually she said it. Like, it was like, I'm eating lunch today, and that's it. Like, it was just like a fact of life. Like, of course you lost track of yourself. Like, that is just what happens when you're a woman moving through this world. So, just like philosophy. And I have been thinking about that ever since, ever so often, because I do not think it's just a fact of life. I think it's a specific pattern with a name and a shape and an origin story. And I feel like it happens to a lot of us. I definitely know I felt that before. And I think a lot of women are living inside it right now, but are realizing that that's what they are experiencing and it doesn't have a name. But what they are experiencing has a name. That makes sense. We are talking about performance identity today. And I want to start by saying this is not a conversation about being fake. This is too simple and it lets the real thing off the hook by saying that. This is a conversation about something much more specific and much more common, and honestly, much more painful than just putting on the front. This is about what happens when a woman has been performing versions of herself for so long and so consistently that the performance and the person becomes indistinguishable, even to her. Here is performance identity actually looks like. And I want to sit with this because it's specific enough that you are going to recognize yourself or somebody you love in it. It looks like being a complete different person depending on who's in the room, not just adjusting to your tone. Everybody does that. But fundamentally, shifting your personality, your opinions, energy, your level of intelligence, you allow yourself to display. The jokes you make, the feelings you admit to, a whole different operation system depending on the audience. It looks like not knowing how to answer simple questions about yourself. What do you like to do? What kind of music do you actually listen to when nobody's else is choosing it? What do you think about this? What do you want? Simple questions that should have very simple answers. And you freeze because you have spent so much time and so long curating answers that serve the relationships or the room that you have lost the access to unfiltered one. Wow. Ooh. Yeah, it looks like exhaustion that does not make sense on paper. You did not run a marathon. You sat in meetings, you had conversations, you showed up, and you are depleted in a way that feels almost physical. Because performing in labor, code switching, is labor. Managing how you are perceived in every room you walk into is labor. And the most women who are doing it do not count it as work because it's invisible. But it costs us something. Every single day it costs something. It could look like a strange loneliness and even inside relationships where people say they love you. because part of you knows they love the version and you have never been brave enough or even safe enough or even cognizant enough to show them what is underneath it. So the love lands, but it does not really fully reaches you because the you they are loving is partly constructed. I keep seeing this in comment sections when a topic comes up. Women saying things like, I would not even know where to start being myself again. I have been this other version for so long. And that comment gets hundreds of replies from women saying, me too. Oh my God, so am I. Me too, me too. Which tells you something. You need to know about how common this is and how rarely it gets named. And it's funny when I had the conversation with that person, it's like I've saw this before, instances before, and it's like sometimes when you say, "Oh, it's not me," it's not really so important until it becomes you, and until it is labeled or described, and you're like, "Damn, I know that." And here's what I want to be clear about, because this matters. It truly does. Performance identity is not vanity. It's not superficial. It's almost always a survival strategy. It developed because at some point, maybe in childhood, maybe in a relationship, maybe at the workplace, in a culture that has very specific ideas about what kind of woman you were allowed to be. You learned the real version of you was not entirely safe to show. Too much, too loud, too opinionated, too sensitive. How about ambitious? Too sometime? You learn to like collaborate, to edit that, to lead with the version that gets the warmest reception and tuck everything else like behind. And it worked. For so long, it worked. The performance worked. Give yourself a round of applause if you think you need to. It kept you connected. Of course, you was employed. And it kept the peace and you got the room. And so it became a habit. And then it becomes a reflex. And then it becomes so automatic that you stop noticing you were doing it. And now here you are, capable, functioning, well liked. And somewhere underneath all of that is a woman who has not fully been seen in a very long time. Maybe ever. Let me tell you something personal. I think this one deserves me showing up in it. I remember sitting in the meeting once and I was doing a thing. The thing, the performance nod, the measured response, the careful laugh at exactly the right moment, saying the right things at the right time in the right order to the right people. And something made me stop mid-sentence, not out loud, but in my head. I just kind of stepped outside of myself for like a second and watched what I was doing. And I'm like, and I thought, who is this woman? Because she was polished. Don't get me wrong. She was appropriate. She was composed. And but she was not entirely me. She was a version of me that had been refined and edited and calibrated for that room. And the strange part was not the performance. The strange part was how comfortable it had become. How automatic. Like I had been doing it for so long. I forgot I was doing it. It had just become the setting I walked into when certain rooms was on. And then I thought about family gatherings because if you have ever walked through a door of a family function and felt yourself immediately becoming a slightly different person, maybe smaller, quieter, fitting back into the shape the room remembers, even though you have grown completely out of it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's no point to my family because I love my family. But that was just another example to provide. You know, there have been moments in time in having conversations with clients and, you know, and casual conversations when they were at their own gatherings, their own people, their own space, and they sat there in the corner and just watched themselves work the room and had this strange out of body experience where it was watching this person warm, engaging, saying all the right things and thinking, I do not fully recognize myself right now. Not with judgment, just with genuine curiosity. Like, when did this happen? Like, when did this performance become the default setting? When do I stop noticing the gap between the version of who I was pretending and the version that's actually standing there? That curiosity is what starts something for me as I'm talking to people, as I've actually, remember that it's not shame, not a breakdown, not a dramatic moment of revelation, just a quiet question I could not put back down. Who am I when I am not performing for anyone? And I want to ask you the same question today because I think you know what I am talking about. I think you have had your own version of that moment, maybe in a meeting, maybe in a family table, maybe in a relationship, when you realize one day that you have been so tired for so long that the person sitting across from you has never actually met the unedited version of you. Ooh, here, here is what really is going on underneath performance identity. And why is it so hard to let go of even when you see it clearly? It's not just about other people. It's about your safety, specifically the safety of being accepted. We want to be chosen or not being too much of not enough for the spaces you're in. And when you have been operating from that need for safety for long enough, it stops feeling like a strategy and start feeling like just who are you? You forgot that you were even a version of you before the editing began. Or you remember how vaguely, the way you remember a dream, the outline is there, but the details kind of like fuzzy or slipping. And there is, and there is where it connects to my self-worth. My pillars. So this is where it puts self-worth in a way that is important to me. Because a woman who genuinely believes she's enough as she is unedited, unperformed, does not need to construct a version of herself that is more palatable. The performance is always downstream of a belief. The belief that the real version is insignificant. That she needs to be improved before she is presented. The love and belongings are unconditional or are conditional, or how well she manages the impression she makes. That belief is a lie, but it's an old lie, and an old lie feels true. When I watched over 20 years of sitting alongside women in some of the hardest moments of their lives is this. The women who are most trapped in performance identity are often the most capable, intelligent, pers- perspective, perceptive woman in the room because the performance requires a skill. You have to read people. You have to adapt quickly. You have to manage your own reaction in real time while also managing the impression you're making. Damn, that is some sophisticated set of damn skills. You think about it, but like, damn. And the tragedy is that all of that intelligence and perception and adaptability has been going towards managing how you are seen instead of towards building who you actually are. Damn it, damn. Ooh. Like, so here's what we do with this, concretely. Because I am not here to just name the thing and like leave you with it. The first move you want to get into is get curious about, you know, about your own editing process. Start noticing, not judging, just noticing, like when you make a real time adjustment to who you are presenting, when you swallow an opinion, when you soften the edge, when you perform it, when you perform enthusiasm, you do not feel or calm. You do not have to have it. Just clock it. It's like checking to see what's happening. You do not have to change it yet. Just start to see it because you cannot examine what you cannot see. And you cannot change what you cannot examine. um, Another you could do is find one relationship, just one, where you practice being slightly more unedited. Not a dramatic reveal, not a confrontation, just a small moment of not performing. Say what you actually think about something, like, about something it's like low stakes, for instance. Admit that you do not like the thing everyone seems to like. See what happens. Like, share a real reaction instead of a managed one. Let's notice how the relationship survives it. Let's see what happens. Because your nervous system needs that evidence. It needs to learn through experiences that your real self at the threat. It has to be treated at the threat, yes. It has been treated as. How about, maybe spending some time alone without performing for yourself? This sounds strange, but it's real. And actually, no, it's not strange. A lot of women who have been in performance mode for a long time, even in their heads, they narrate their own lives in imaginary audiences. Yes. They curate their own inner experiences. So practice moments of genuine, aloneness. People sometimes don't like to be alone. Notice the people who, when it's quiet, have to make noise, gotta turn the music on, gotta be around people, you know? So let's try to practice that aloneness, not productivity. It's like not productivity solitude, not self-improvement, just solitude, just being without narrating it, just sitting there without making it mean something, without performing it eternity. This is where you start to find the parts of yourself that has been like waiting quietly for permission to exist, you know? And and this is one that I feel this step will require the most courage, is to ask yourself one honest question and actually answer it. Not the answer you would give someone else, but the answer that is true right now in this moment. The question is this: Who would I be if nobody was watching and nothing was at stake? Sit with it. Write it down if you need to, because the answer, whatever it is the beginning of the map back to you. Now, somebody's going to say, but what if the real me is not someone people will accept? What if I let the performance down and what if it's underneath is not enough? And I want to speak directly to that fear because, it's the real and it deserves the answer. The version of you that people currently accept is not fully you. So the acceptance you currently have is not fully yours. You are being accepted for this brilliant performance, and that acceptance, as good as it might feel sometimes, has a hollow quality to it. Check it out. Because on some level, they are not fully seeing you. And you cannot feel truly loved for something is partially constructed. It's a lie. The risk of being real is that some people will not stray. That is true. Some will not. But the ones who stay when you are real, those are the relationships you need to curate. Those relationships will feel different than anything you have ever had before. Because for the first time, you will be actually known. And being known, truly known, is worth more than being widely accepted. Knowing yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. Check yourself so you can be yourself, sis. If this conversation opens something up, if you are sitting with this question of who would it be if nobody's watching, I need you to check out my Breaking the Cycle workbook. Link is in the description. A real process for the women who was ready to stop performing and start showing up. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. If this conversation spoke to you, I would love for you to join the Empowerment Clique community by subscribing and sharing. This conversation, please share the conversation with someone who may need it. I remember, the most powerful thing you can do is show up for yourself. Not that edited version, not the version that gets the best reception, but you. Until next time, keep growing, keep becoming. Let's keep creating these conversations because I'm loving them that transform lives. You have me in a lab, girls, and I'm loving this. I am the Kenya Tan, and I will see you in our next conversation. Peace.